This all against the backdrop of what's happening in Washington. The Senate set to begin what's likely to be a long series of amendment votes on President Trump's tax and spending bill. Comes after a near constant weekend of work for lawmakers. Emily Wilkins joins us with the latest, and there was a lot of drama.
There was a lot of drama, Andrew, but at this point, the Senate could vote on that Trump mega bill as early as today. They are at that point, so long, of course, as they actually have 50 senators willing to vote yes. We'll see about that. As you mentioned, over the weekend, lots of drama, but the Senate did narrowly agree to proceed to the bill. Now, there were two senators who voted against that, Republican senators, rather, Rand Paul and Thom Tillis. We knew that Rand Paul was opposed. Tillis was a bit of a surprise, but afterwards, he did announce that he would no longer be seeking re-election and really went to the Senate floor, had a very fiery speech about how the bill would be hurting Americans on Medicaid. Both of these guys are likely to vote no on final passage, meaning that the Senate can only lose one more vote before they're going to be in trouble. Now, an updated version of the bill released over the weekend did make several changes. Now, this includes keeping that $40,000 limit on state and local deductions, the SALT cap, but only until 2030. Medicaid cuts are back in the bill, including that cap on the provider taxes that states charge healthcare providers. And wind and solar got a huge hit. They're facing a very bleak outlook right now. Projects have a shorter runway to qualify for tax credits. Plus, these industries are going to be subject to a potential additional tax unless these companies find ways to detangle their supply chains from China, which is very difficult to do in the current market. Now, the version of the bill right now is expected to add $3.25 trillion to the debt over the next 10 years, according to the Congressional Budget Office. And that could spell trouble in the House if the bill does wind up heading that way. Remember, the House Freedom Caucus had that agreement, and they tweeted last night that the Senate bill violates that. And they say that, they wanted to make sure spending is kept low. We'll have to get a better sense today exactly how deep those concerns run. But before anything happens in the House, the Senate has to complete votes on dozens of amendments that'll be offered by Democrats and Republicans. That's going to start at 9 a.m. today. It could finish late today. It could go into Tuesday. But either way, when this gets through the Senate, if it does, the House is going to need to move very quickly to get this to Trump's desk by July 4th. Guys?
In terms, just real quick, of, who's on what side, other senators we should be watching for, but also just to handicap the timing piece. Is it? I mean, there are some people saying it's just impossible to get done before July 4th.
If everything goes right, they can get this done. If the Senate is able to say vote on this early Tuesday morning, House is able to vote Wednesday, Trump comes in, flips some of the no's and those on the fence to yes, this could actually get done. The fact of the matter, though, is that every really vote that we've seen up until this point, the message to lawmakers who aren't totally happy has been, well, we still have more steps to go. This bill is going to change. This bill is going to evolve. We are now at the point where that's no longer an argument that GOP leaders can rely on to get their members to vote yes. And so if certain fiscal hawks, if certain moderates who are concerned about Medicaid really want to dig their heels in, now is the point that they can do it. And so, yes, there's every chance that they miss the deadline, but there's also every chance that they make the deadline. I think it just depends how much those who oppose the bill right now are willing to really stand their ground and continue to vote no.
Emily, maybe it's not the fiscal hawks they have to worry about, though, at this point, maybe more the moderates. They got Ron Johnson to finally agree to yes, but he said that was because they agreed to phase out that 90% Medicaid match that was part of the extension of the population under the Affordable Care Act. If he's happy with it, that could very well alienate people like Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins. And if that happens, if you have those two, Thom Tillis and Rand Paul, vote no, it's done.
But, Becky, you are absolutely right. And that's going to be one of the very interesting things to see when they begin voting on amendments. We know one is going to be offered that deals with that federal and state match. There's a concern that if the states have to pay more, there are going to be fewer people who are going to be able to be on Medicaid. And so that's one of the amendment votes to watch very closely today. But you're right. I mean, this has been the difficulty of getting this bill through the entire time, that you have these fiscal hawks that are just so worried about the cost of the bill, the addition to the debt, versus senators who say, look, we can't take away benefits benefits from our constituents. And you're right. It's going to be very interesting to see. We're not totally done with this bill yet. We're expecting a new edition update of text, updating some provisions in this bill. And we have that amendment vote all to get through today before we're actually going to see what that final vote is. And there's definitely going to be a lot of arm twisting behind the scenes because no one's going to walk away fully happy on this one.
Emily, before we go, Elon Musk, who's been out there as publicly as anybody this weekend, just pounding this bill. What kind of impact is that having or not having?
So at this point, obviously, Elon Musk has kind of shifted to a role where he's a little further away from government. But at the same point, he had really strong criticism for this bill, particularly those clean energy tax credits. He said that this bill funds the industries of the past, not the industries of the future. And I think to a certain extent, maybe not so much Musk himself, but the fact that this opinion that he's putting out there is really widely shared by a lot of folks in the solar industry, in the wind industry. You saw the Chamber of Commerce come out with a statement. They widely support this bill. They love the tax provisions. And yet they're saying, hey, this stuff with wind and solar, it's not workable. And it's working against our own interests because we need more electricity in this country. Why would we go ahead and limit some of the energy sources that we could be tapping into here? So I think there's certainly concern from Musk, but that's also just a much wider concern in the industry right now, within companies, within various groups, saying, hey, these cuts to wind and solar could be really detrimental when it comes to the amount of energy the U.S. needs.